What's up, guys? We're here. So this is like VFX tutorial part 4, and this is going to be like a build up. So like the video before this will be like the combat part 1, and then it will be this video which will teach client side effects, and then the next video we're gonna do combat part 2. But yeah, in this video we're gonna go over how to do client side effects to help, reduce lag, reduce the resources that your game uses, and just make your game a little smoother, right? So if you went through the first 3 parts, you would know we did like the spin move. I could just play and test it. I think the button's E. Yep. And we did the spin move, right? So, and like all the effects are on the server, and I'll explain that as we get more in depth. Actually, I can explain it now. So let me do like a 2-player test, right? Or actually a 1-player test will suffice. Alright, so now that we got like the server loaded up, you see how the character shows up in the server side. So this is what the server sees, everything right here, and this is what the client sees, right? So these things can be different. So if I use like the move, right, you see the effects on the server side, it looks like it's running smooth, but like imagine like 20 people in your game and they're constantly using moves. You don't really want the server to have to take the load of making everything, right? So what you want to do is put it so that only the clients can see, but the server can, so it doesn't get like replicated on the server, which then will free up performance. So to get started, right, and I'm gonna teach like core teams. I think I already taught them. Let me use spawn functions here. We can use spawn functions, it doesn't matter. All right, so to get started, just make a remote event and replicate its storage, and this can be VFX. Just name it VFX, right? And then in the module, we can drop a few lines under debris. Do local RP is equal to game get service, like get children, get service, replicated storage, and then under that we can do VFX is equal to RP wait for child VFX, right? So now what we want to do is move these functions to the VFX like module, right? So what I like to do is I make like a folder, and I call it VFX underscore handler, and then inside of that I put a local script, and I'll name it the same thing, right? And then I'll go back to spin module, copy the 2 lines we just put, which is the local RP replicated storage in the VFX, and paste it into the local script. Then what you want to do is VFX on client event colon connect function that. So that's what we want. So now what we want to do is we're gonna be sending an argument. So arguments can be presented as 3 dots, and by having like these 3 dots we can send as much data as we want, like through the 3 dots, and then we can set it to a table doing that. So this takes all of the info that we put inside of the 3 dots and puts it into a table called argument, right? So this just creates arguments for us. And then when I do local module is equal to require, and then it'll be script find first child, the argument 1, right? So I like to make like a key, and I'm gonna just do this. And this key will be will determine like how we structure our like VFX, right? And what I like to make argument 1 is the module's name, right? And the argument 2 is usually the module's function that I'm calling on. So this could be any function that's in the module. And then 3, I like to use 3 as a folder to like store things in. Sometimes you could make the folders on the client itself, and sometimes you could do it on the server. It just depends on how you want to handle it. And the argument 4 is usually like the pivot object, or like the main C frame that we have to use for that function, right? And then after line 7, right, I'm gonna do module argument 2, and then parentheses, and then argument, right? So what we're doing is calling the module, and then we're calling the function in the module that we want to use, and then we're sending our argument to that module's function, right? So now inside of VFX handler, we're gonna make a module. We're gonna call this spin module, right? Or not spin module, spin VFX, right? And I'm gonna just make sure the module name is the same inside the script. And then what you want to first start off is by making the functions. So you do function spin VFX, or the module's name dot whatever you want to call like your function. So I'm going to use the same names we have in here. So we have rotate, and then I could copy this, and then the next one is rocks, and then the last one is damage, which you want to handle damage on the server, so do not like worry about moving this. But what we can do is move this section, right? So we're just gonna move everything in the first function, everything in the like the rotate function. I'm gonna move it into the rotate function for the module, right? And then inside the module, we're gonna do argument as like its parameter, and then we're gonna do the same thing at the bottom with the rocks. We're gonna remove that extra function, and you're gonna get a bunch of errors. We're gonna fix this by so notice how the module has the meshes folder, right? You can move the meshes folder to the module, the VFX module, and then we can go in the VFX module, local meshes is equal to script.meshes, and that will get rid of one error where it has to look through the meshes folder. Now if we go back to the module, what I want to do, I need to remove meshes from it, right? So I'm gonna remove that, and we're gonna get errors in here, which is fine. And we're just gonna remove this, the rotate function, because we just moved it, right? And we're gonna get the rocks after. But let's make a new function inside of the spin module that's inside of the spin server script, right? We're gonna call it active. I'm gonna send player character humanoid repart, and that's what we want to send through. And now we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna copy the rocks. Actually, before that, we're gonna go back to the VFX, right? And remember this key that we have. So argument 4 is the pivot, argument 3 is the folder. So what you can do is copy those, right? And everything that says folder changes to argument 3, So anything that changes that is folder, change it to argument 3, and you should be good there. And then anything that's humanoid root part, change it to argument 4. And then the last stuff is tween service. It's local tween service. Get a game, get service, tween service, and local run service. This is equal to game, get service, run service, right? So now all of our errors should disappear. And if you need to like see the script, well, you can pause and go through everything. And remember, I only changed folder and humanoid root part. Now we're gonna do the same for rocks. Sorry for the word cut. Okay, so we're gonna copy everything that's in a rocks function that's on a server script, and we can remove the rocks function on the server side, and then inside we can put the stuff that we copied into the VFX module, right? And then remember, anything that's humanoid root part is argument 4, and anything that's folder is argument 3. So we're gonna do this, and then we're gonna do this, change this to 4, and then all of our errors should be gone, right? So now you're wondering, like, how do we call, you know, our functions that we just used, that we're using, you know, that we were using on the server? And what we have to do is we made this function, right? I'm just call it active, you call it anything, and I'm gonna rename it to create, and then go back to the server script. And remember, we're gonna have to change all of this, well, except for the damage part. So we're just gonna do a spawn function, and then we're gonna remove the 2 spawn functions we had there. And then remember their parameters that we send, which is folder and humanoid root part. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna do spin module dot create. And I think I renamed this wrong. Yeah, so it's supposed to be spin module dot create, right? So now if we do dot create, now create shows up, and then it's gonna be player, character, and the humanoid root part. We also have to send the folder through before the humanoid root part, which is like that. I mean, we could change it actually. We could just do this, so that way our four parameters that we're sending through are player, character, humanoid, and now folder, right? And now go to the server script, and then we're gonna do for underscore player and pairs. So what we're doing is getting all of the players in the game, and by doing this, we're gonna do game dot players get children, right? So we just made a loop through all of the characters that's, well, all of the players that's in the game. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna do VFX fire client. Now you could use fire all clients if you want to use that. I just like to use fire client. But the first parameter that we have to send in, not player but player, so we can get all of the players, not just our player, right? And then remember, so we have like argument right here, which is the 3 dots. So when it comes to fire and client, the player is pretty much just an enabling thing so that it can run. So think of that as like, this is not being counted in the argument, right? This is its own separate thing. So anything after player that's being fired to is inside of the argument. So the first thing that's inside of the argument, remember our key is the module's name. So the module's name is spin VFX, and it has to be the exact same or it would not work. Then the second argument is the function that we're calling on. So we have rotate and we have rocks. Rotate and rocks, yeah. So we're gonna do rotate, and it's lowercase r. Yep. And then in the third, it will be folder, which I didn't put here. Make sure you put folder in your parameters. So it's player, character, human, repart, and folder. And make sure you're sending that same order through the server script, right? So the third argument is folder, and then human repart is the fourth argument, remember? And now we're just gonna copy this since we're doing rocks and rotate. So we're just gonna put them in their own spawn function. And now we have like duplicates right here, and change this to rocks, and rocks is capital R. Yep. Now as far as this goes, everything should work. You didn't have to change damage. Damage should always be done on the server, so don't worry about damage. And this is what your server script should look like. You can go and pause. Then this is the server module, and everything below is the same. Now this is the local script for the VFX handler, and this is what handles all of the VFX cliently. Now you could do a neat trick and do like a sort of render distance, so that like a player that's far away from the person that's using this move, they don't have to replicate it to their client. Just let me know if y'all want to know how to do like that sort of like render distance if you want, and then I could do it in like the next part. But spin VFX, this is what it looks like. You could pause at any time. This section didn't change from the server script, so you don't really have to worry about that. Alright, so now that we have everything, I'm just gonna go ahead and save. And then if I play test this, everything should work. Moment of truth. So press E. Yes, sir. And it's actually smoother too. It actually feels a lot smoother on the client too. You're probably wondering like, hey, like, what did this do? So now we're gonna do the one player server, right? So we're gonna do that. Alright, remember this stuff on the right is what the server sees, and this right here is what the client sees, right? So if we press E to use the move, you see the server doesn't see any of that. The server didn't have to use any data to create the objects or anything. So essentially it didn't get replicated on the server, saving the server resources, right, for it to process more important stuff that needs to be processed on the server. And the VFX are processed on the client with no problems, no delays, nothing. And so like all the players, like, so I can like end this, and then we could do a 2-player, and I can sort of set it up so you can see all 3 screens, and you'll see that only the players themselves can see this since it's client-sided effects, right? So we're just gonna let this load, and I'll be back when it, loads up. So this is just like a standby like player. This is what the server sees, and then this is the client as well. So these two are the client, this is the server. So if I press E, you see how both the clients see it, but the server does not. So yeah, That's client-sided effects. If you like this video, hit the like, sub, share. Um, the video after this will be combat part 2 because I needed to teach this first before we do the combat because I want to teach client-sided effects alongside, you know, the combat, and then you guys have like a super long video of something you just can't understand, right? So I just had to like break it down a little bit. But yeah, thanks for watching.